I'd like to welcome a woman with great power, grace, and wisdom to the Epiphany series. She was brought up in the healing and spiritual traditions of the Amazon and the Andes in Chile, and has gone on to become one of the most influential souls when it comes to shamanic wisdom and encouraging women to step into their power. Welcome to the Epiphany series, Marcela.
Thank you, Peter. It's an honor to be with you, and if I can be of any help in these times of great crisis to anyone, I am deeply pleased. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. I just want to start with the beginning of your life so we can be a little bit chronological. You obviously grew up in Chile when the military had such a stronghold, and yet deep down beneath that masculine charade, spirit was woven so beautifully into the fabric of the culture. How was that kind of paradox of a beginning to your life with the masculinity and the femininity of the divine?
Well, yes, we were going through 17 years of dictatorship, and it happened right after I was born. So my whole childhood was in that very overwhelming masculine, with that overwhelming masculine force. And as an adult, searching for my truth, I realized that the masculine growing up was either overpowering or coward, not courageous. So of course, from that place of insecurity, the masculine becomes very, uh, mm, even aggressive. So I had a very rebellious spirit since a child, since kindergarten actually. I went to German school, and I would obey orders, but I would make it painful for the teacher, like excruciatingly slow I will move just to get in her nerves. And I was only 5 years old. So I had a very rebellious spirit, and I knew there was more to life than obeying orders. And the thing is that the women in my family were really strong because they couldn't depend on the men, because mostly in my family, they went to the side of cowardly, or they died, they left the house, they left the women with 3 children, 4 children. So really not great role models, male role models. So women were very strong, but outwardly strong, and very much victims inside. Like we carry story of victimhood, like the men do not support us and we have to do it on our own. So a lot of resentment. And I built up even a greater strength, outer strength, by becoming a super athlete. I was practicing biking, triathlon, biking, swimming, and I became like this Iron woman. I was paragliding, skydiving, and surfing. I was like the first female in Chile, one of the first three to do those things. So I wanted to be invincible. And then with that goal, I went to California to surf there with the big boys. And and then I met um, my first husband, and he was physically stronger than me, and I didn't recognize that emotionally he was as wounded or more wounded than I was. And my prince, he was a prince in the beginning, turned into a monster towards the end, and this monster
Yeah.
broke me down. So my relationship with him was heartbreaking, and physically broke me down too. So I all of a sudden couldn't rely on this iron power, but for the first time I had to go deep within to start searching for a different kind of, of power, but it's a power that comes from deep wisdom. So that's when I got in touch with the feminine wisdom. I think I always had it in a way, because the beauty about my family, though was so dysfunctional in so many ways, is that probably was one of the few families in Chile that didn't impose the church on the children. So my mother just really let us fly with our imaginations and didn't impose religion. So I grew up very free in my mind too. That's where I had true freedom. And if I said I'm gonna go surf in California and I was 19 years old, I could do it. I could do anything my imagination told me to. So that was really a gift from my family. Well, I did go through dangerous experiences because I grew up with very little boundaries really in the home.
Yeah.
So when I was broken down in my relationship and I found myself with two young children, I did not want to be the irresponsible parent. So I wanted to be very present and the best mother I could be. But now I couldn't, when I saw that it wasn't going to work with the partner, with my husband at the time, I was terrified of all that responsibility, to be responsible for two other lives. So I was terrified, and I went through my deep dark night of the soul. Like, what do I do with my life? It's like Chile was so far away. My family was so into their own problems that I couldn't really ask them for help, and I saw myself really lonely and vulnerable, so vulnerable. Like, so I reached to that most vulnerable place inside, and that's where my healing started.
Wow.
When I gave up, when I surrendered. So I have been trying to conquer mountains and conquer nature, conquer everything, like the masculine paradigm, conquer and feel safe by conquering, controlling. But then when I was out of control, that's when the journey really started.
Wow. Thank you for being
Mm-hmm.
so honest about what you went through. It must have been difficult. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are watching this as well who are in that place right now that you're talking about when you're in California, where you had a partner who started off as the dream and ended up being the monster. What advice would you give people who are in that position now? I mean, you said surrender, but is there anything else that you would recommend for people in that place?
I feel my experience says that there are no shortcuts, that we must go through that deep pain. We must face our places of weakness where we feel completely defeated. Just by feeling, I feel like when we finally acknowledge that we are defeated, then we can start going through a transformation, because otherwise we're trying to operate from the old paradigm. So in being defeated, I'm feeling truly in every cell of my body, feeling defeated to the point that I was considering to take my own life. But of course I didn't do it because of my children, because I saw no way out. So from that place, it's like the in the journey of the tarot cards, you're in the tower, the crumbling of the tower of the old paradigm. And only then you start finding, because the cards that come after the tower are the moon, the star. So you start connecting with the true power, with the energies that are bigger than us and that are celestial and that are actually also of Pachamama, Mother Earth, and so that deep wisdom and the true power, the true strength of every person, not just of women. So we have to go through the eye of the needle. We have to be squeezed of the old so we can be reborn into the new. We have to be like the phoenix, be burned into ashes, and from our own ashes be reborn with new wings. We have to become the caterpillar that builds a cocoon and is in that darkness and really doesn't know what a butterfly is. So it's really terrifying. But if we don't swim in our own terror, then we're taking pills to not feel. We're becoming alcoholic, workaholic, anything not to see, anything not to be in touch with our feelings and pain. But I really feel if we want to come to the other side, from my own experience, not once, but many times, because of course we go through the dark night of the soul more than once in our lives. And every time it's like surrender to the biggest pain. And by feeling that pain, contractions like a birth is bloody and painful. But of course, our culture has taught us to ask for the epidural, for the anesthesia, not to feel. So I gave birth at home, both of my sons, and I had the strength to say, okay, I'm just gonna breathe through these contractions. And I think that really taught me a lot, what is to breathe through pain and this is what I can promise to people. This is what I can guarantee and promise to everyone. And this is my words of light and hope. It's like, I promise you and everyone that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There's light after the darkness part of the night. There's the dawn always. So we must have the courage. Otherwise, we get stuck in the tunnel. We get stuck. If we resist it, we get stuck into that darkness, into the pain. So gotta be willing to shed it all, to let it go, to die. We have to be willing to die to be reborn.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you again for your honesty. I'll never forget you taking us through the hero's journey, which, I mean, Joseph Campbell obviously spoke a lot about it. He created his version of this heroic journey. Can you just give us a bit more information, like your perspective on the hero's journey? Because I know you're also writing a book right now, which is connected to this.
Yes, thank you. So it's very much along what I was talking about. We are in our comfort zone, and sometimes it's great that we are comfortable and life is flowing with grace and we feel on top of the game. But like everything needs renewal. Our lives needs renewal. For us to evolve, we need to renew. So once in a while in our lives, we feel the call to step out of the comfort zone, out of the known, into something new. So we want to pay attention to that, because if we don't, then it can come in the shape and form of an illness or an accident or some sort of crisis, like is happening to humanity now, because we haven't heard the call to get back to reciprocity, right relationship with all our relations. Then there's this huge crisis that is going to make us listen. So the same thing in our lives, if we do not listen to the need for renewal, we might manifest a crisis. So it's really important to be in touch with our intuition. And here I'm going to do a parenthesis and say that when we have lost touch with our intuition because the voice of society, of culture, of what must be from the outside, when we override our own intuition from that bigger voice of society, then we start operating from impulse, from instinct, which is very different than intuition. So instinct is what about me, and how I protect myself and my dog, my cat, my kids, my house, and I have guns, and who's the enemy. So that the instinct is very fear-based, and is very much wanting to survive physically. Intuition, it brings us into the opportunity of realizing ourselves as divine beings that are transcending the personal, and we are able to taste the transpersonal, the connectivity of all life, and the beauty of being a net, a web of consciousness. So listen to the intuition. It's so important that we get back to intuition. And then when we feel the need to renew, then we go into the journey. And here we step out of the comfort zone into an exploration, really.
Yeah.
And in this exploring is that we may find ourselves questioning our lives, and then we might face fears and insecurities. And this doesn't need to be that strong, intense, or terrible every time, but at least once in our lives, we all go through a very intense initiation,
Yeah.
which is terrifying when we're divorcing once, when we lose a loved one, or when we lose our job and we feel like, what is it going to happen? And but okay, so here I want to remind everybody of the mythology of the times before the Judeo-Christian mythology of one masculine God that is in the heavens separated from us. Before in Europe, our culture in Europe has the preceding mythology of the goddess. And this was so beautiful because the goddess was not separated from her children. So the creatress was not separated from the creation. So first of all, in that mythology, you feel like you are in the womb of the mother. You are being nourished. You never left the Garden of Eden. She provides, and we are in her belly, in her heart. So we belong, we're loved. So we are loved, we're accepted, we're deeply loved, we're not separated. So that mythology is just so healing, just to reconnect with that first and foremost. And then the other thing that in this mythology, death was never portrayed as a moment of annihilation, but it was always portrayed in ceramics, in any artifacts or painting in walls or anything. It was always portrayed with something indicating that right after death, there's spring, life again. So something very common was to put a little twig, a little new branch of a tree, like just a new flower, something growing. So out of death, out of the skeleton, there was always a twig being born. So indicating that after death, there's life.
Yeah.
And of course, this is what nature is always telling us. After the dark moon, there's the new moon.
After the winter, there's the spring. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's obvious like that, and so then that helps us in the journey to think like this. Help us in the journey of the hero to trust that if we can bear the dark night of the soul, then we will be born with new strength and new wisdom, and that's what happens. But of course, after we are reborn, we have, it's like happened to you after your shamanic training. Life didn't get easier, but it got richer and more beautiful and more loving. So same, there are challenges. So these challenges, difficulties along the way help us test our strength, our new strength, and help us realize our new wisdom. So it's very beautiful. So what happens after that, we have all and the hero's journey does not happen in a chronological order. So, but what happens in the default map is that we have experiences, numinous of experiences that help us realize our full potential. So we might realize in a more holistic way our own feminine side, and our own masculine, the divine feminine, and our own divinity.
Yeah.
So we all have experiences that make us become more whole again. We recover our soul passion, and then we start understanding that we are beings that are whole and complete, and with the potential to be um, gods and goddesses,
Yeah.
and all that.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you, Marcel, for taking us through that. I think anyone who, I mean, probably a lot of people who are going to do the course with the four winds, the medicine wheel, are probably desperately researching, and this would be one of the videos. I was trying to work out, well, firstly, why I wanted to do it so much. I just felt the call, and I was sat around 50 people at one point, I think, for the first bit and 20 for the second. And I just looked at them at the beginning thinking, oh, they're on this journey, but I'm not. But of course, I very soon realized when we went into the West and we went into the Jaguar energy that I had a lot of stuff that was lurking back there that I hadn't ever dealt with. And yeah, I realized that everyone, no matter who you are, even if you think you've had a really easy ride in life, that doesn't mean you have to go deep and into that darkness. Um, what's been amazing is, you know, when you go from that jaguar and you actually genuinely go there and you move into that hummingbird, that all those things that you were told you weren't very good at as a child, and then suddenly you find, oh my goodness, I can draw, I can play an instrument, I can, yeah, and it's just incredible. So thank you for that, and anyone who's watching this who hasn't done the medicine wheel at the Four Winds, please, if you're considering it, do it, because it's every bit and more the journey you need to go on in life.
Mm-hmm.
But just my next question, Marcel, is actually about relationships, because you obviously went through a very challenging relationship. Do you think um, do you think people who are on a spiritual journey have to be married to someone who is spiritual? Do you think it's a key part of that journey?
Beautiful question. I think every human being is in a spiritual journey, but some people just don't want to see it. They don't want to acknowledge it. They just they deny um, that reality, and they want. We live in a very in a culture that loves empiricism. Everything scientific and needs to be proved, and you need to be see it with the eyes to believe it, and all that.
Yeah,
So I feel like it's important to understand that everybody's in a spiritual journey. And again, some people are in total denial, and then one day a crisis will put them right in touch with that which is beyond what we can see or feel strongly. But those more subtle realities. So I feel like everybody gets there at some point. And definitely by the time we're dying, we all get right in touch with our most ethereal self and consciousness. So um, I feel like if you like someone, that person might be very intellectual and not, like I just said, a bit in denial of spirit. um, I think that for me, as long as the person next to you is willing to grow, is willing to become a better person, then there's hope. But if the person next to you uh, thinks that she or he is already a developed human being that doesn't need any more fixing or any more opening of the heart, then I feel like that person brings the relationship to a dead end. So when someone is willing to grow, to become more heartful, more loving, eventually they will start discovering the spiritual aspect, the more ethereal. But that's for me like a must condition, because if one person is spiritual and always working on herself to be more awakened in that way, more awakened in relationship to spirit and to other fellow beings, then it's just really you find like a wall when the other person thinks that she or he knows it all and doesn't need to grow up at all.
Sure. Sure.
So I like
But
how
do you think? Sorry. No, I was
Sorry.
just thinking because a lot of people talk about the mirror, don't they? How that their partner is a mirror of the issues that they have.
Yeah.
But do you think spirit comes to a point where spirit goes, well, actually, this is about as far as this can go because I can only give you so many mirrors, or do you think that mirror is always available to us on that journey?
Yeah. So in this needing the other person to grow up as a in their psyche, psychologically mature as a human being, that both people need to recognize that we have the shadow, the part of us that is so painful to recognize as us, and the part of us that we feel shame about. So if I recognize that I feel shame about something in my family or in me, and my husband triggers that, I have to be able to see that that's my wounding. That is, it's something I need to heal, and I must do that. But then the other person, if I'm offending the other person again and again and again, and the other person is always blaming me and never taking responsibility for her or his shadow, then again I have reached that dead end. So I like Ken Wilber's proposal or analysis that in the Eastern traditions, there's a lot of emphasis in awakening to our Buddhahood, becoming enlightened. And then in the Western civilization, because we ended up with psychology in this need to become better people. And I give a lot of credit to psychology and to your fellow Carl Jung, Swiss. And so he speaks about psychologists and depth psychology. I love help us to grow up, to take responsibility, to become mature adults that can take responsibility for our own feelings, our own triggers, and then shamanically. So that's Ken Wilber speaking about awakening and growing up. And then in shamanism, we say we must show up. So when I must show up in the relationship and look at what triggers me. I can use the psychological tools of looking at the shadow, admitting the shadow, and I must aspire to awaken to my higher being. But I must show up to the relationship. And the other person is not showing up, is always being squirrely and just evading the conversation, evading growing up, evading opening up to higher reality, then yeah, you must make your choice and say, maybe this is not going to be a good companion. And there we must have the courage to take a turn in our lives.
Yeah.
And there we go. We might have to go through that dark night of the soul, and wow, we have children together, and what do we do? And I might give a give an example of what happened to me so people can open their minds a little bit. So
Yeah.
here I am actually in the US with divorcing.
Yeah.
And with my teacher, I mean, this monster really, at the end of the day, was a big teacher and an agent for my transformation.
Yeah.
So today I'm absolutely grateful for my experience and I love everything about it. So, but our solution, we went to mediation, and in mediation, typical solution, you guys have to live as close as possible, 2 blocks away from each other because we lived in a little town. And then children, 1 weekend with each parent, and then that kind of thing. And for me, that was like going inside of a cage. I felt like that's going to be jail for me. And I will never be able to really cut the cord with this guy because the relationship was really horrible at that point. So what I proposed, and he accepted, believe it or not, and everybody thought we were the craziest parents in the world, and we were, but we needed to come up with a solution that was good for us.
Yeah.
And it was totally out of the box solution. So he moved to Maui, Hawaii,
Okay.
yeah, and I moved to Chile. So
Let me
we
just take a note of that. Okay. So literally 3,000 kilometers away from the other person.
10,000.
Oh, sorry, 10,000. Sorry for my geography.
Yeah, 10,000 miles, I think it is. So we moved to the opposite sides of the world. And he built a happy life in Maui next to the ocean. He liked surfing. And I built a happy life in the mountains of Chile.
Wow.
And our children had to like be in a 30-hour journey to go back and forth. But they went to a home that was happy in either end. So it was a totally crazy solution, but it worked for us. And that's what I want to say. I mean, we have to also think outside of the box. And when we're in that dark night of the soul, I'm divorcing, I'm separating, what works for us uniquely in this family? And the kids today, they tell me they're 24 and 22, Mom, I love Alberto and so grateful to have this second father. And he ended up with a very wonderful woman, and they love her too. And so they feel lucky that they gain another set of parents.
Wow.
So,
That's,
yeah.
so there is hope for these people.
Yeah. Now, one of my future books at some point is going to be in relationships.
Yeah.
About relationships. And Alberto and I discovered a map about to gauge relationships and this has to do with the chakras. Chakras tell us about, so the first chakra is the whole theme about feeling safe in the world. Second chakra about partnership and power. Solar plexus about our inner willpower, not in relationship to others, but to ourselves. And then the heart, love, here, expression of our passion, vision, and then connection to spirit. So we realized and we started teaching people like, look, maybe in your relationship, your first chakra is really healthy.
Yeah.
And maybe sexuality and friendships around is very healthy. So first, second chakra is really healthy. Now, your third chakra is not working out because his expression of himself is too selfish and doesn't accept the other. And so eventually, I will share a map of how to realize if your relationship has hope or not, because you might be aligning so well in 5 chakras and just gotta work on the 1 or 2 that are not aligned.
Yeah.
Instead of throwing the whole relationship to.
Well, I'm looking forward to that book, and the other one as well about the hero's journey. I'm part of a community called the Sacred Pause, And that kind of started in lockdown, where we gave meditations for people every day, and we just gave a tiny drop of wisdom. And one of the questions which came out of the sacred pause when they found out I was speaking to you was, how would you recommend that we balance our feminine and masculine energies on our ongoing journey of transformation, both on a personal level but also on a universal level?
I love that question. Okay, I feel like we all have a unique dance. And we must not, and this dance of masculine and feminine is not 50-50. So, for example, and it flows through life. So, for example, I'm in Aries. My son is in Aries, so that's very young, very fiery, and I have a lot of fire and
Yeah,
impulse. And I was very impulsive my first 20 some years of my life, and I did all the crazy things. But then I found this feminine. I had to really swing the pendulum to the feminine, to the intimate, being as quiet as possible, like in the myth of Psyche, the myth of the journey of the soul, Psyche.
yeah,
So I could listen to that whisper of the feminine that you only listen to in silence when you are so close to the ground. So when I was defeated, my ears were so close to the belly of the earth of the feminine voice. And so I really swing the pendulum to the other extreme. And just now, I feel like a more balanced person, feminine, masculine, after 50 years, really.
yeah,
So I feel like life also will take us to that place that we need to cultivate uh, more feminine or masculine. So after doing so many wild sports, adventure sports, me and nature really wasn't basketball, wasn't with other people, it was just me and nature. Then I gave all that up with this more feminine lifestyle. And now my yearning, my longing was to dance, to move slower, to do qigong, yoga, always music. And so it really shifted. So I feel like a man that's probably have been in the warrior providing role all adult life, trying to provide for a family,
yeah,
might all of a sudden have this yearning to cultivate more of the feminine, and also listen more deeply, be more comfortable with silence and needing more silence. And maybe a girl that her whole childhood, youth was doing ballet and playing dolls and being with girls and being girl. Maybe she finds herself in her 20s without a father that provides, a no man that provides, and all of a sudden she has to cultivate her young energy that goes out and learns to stand strong in her right side and provide for herself. So she might have to cultivate, like they say in the Eastern traditions, the masculine is are the skillful means, the skillful means in life. And of course they take it to become spiritual, but also the skillful means of how do I bring food to the table, how do I go out and hunt uh, in modern ways, how do I provide for myself, my family, and I don't depend on the other.
yeah,
And then the feminine in this Eastern vision is the compass. So it's very beautiful, because if we have a masculine without compass, then the masculine just want to build more bridges, more highways, bigger buildings, the higher the better. Like in Manhattan, has the biggest fallow, uh, and,
yeah,
uh, and that's the masculine mind. But when there's a compass, the feminine says, okay, we're going to use all this skillfulness to stop hunger in the world, to help our fellow people that are suffering so much today to find solutions to the world problems today. So it's really important that we find this intuition, this voice that is connected, this voice that is connected to the earth and all life. So when we make decisions, it's not just for me and my cat and my dog, but we make decisions for the 7 generations after, 7 generations before, and everybody around. And that's how I see it, like compass, a skillful means.
Wow.
And a compass without skillful means, then we're just idealistic, wishing only and feeling paralyzed. So
Great
after,
wisdom. Great wisdom.
mm-hmm. So I feel that that's a good way, and this actually ties in with the end of the journey of the hero, because the hero, after finding his feminine, masculine, and more transcendental self, then he goes back home, and it's not the physical home, but back to his own heart center to be in service to others. So the medicine wheel, the East, is about seeing the bigger picture, knowing that life is interconnected and that we must be in service to all life and not just to our little lives. And the hero's journey ends up in the same way. Go back and share, because in the hero's journey, we say we receive gifts, boons, divine wisdom, and then we must use that to help others, to be in service to all life. So everything ends up in that place of, okay, I have done the journey, I know I'm from here, I must use my gifts to help all life, to
Yeah.
be in harmony, to be in Aini, reciprocity. So
So you return home, but in a completely different state of mind or state of heart, I guess you might say, because you've gone through the wounding, you've gone on the adventure, you've realised it's not easy, but you've realised your darkness, really. Your
so there is a difference between a very egoic life in service to oneself, to our own egos, and our own woundings that need more and more and more to feel safe, and to be in a place of, okay, I recognize that every human being is on the same journey at different stages, and I'm here to support and help without becoming
yeah,
victims, but from a place of
yeah,
power. Yeah, no
yeah.
martyrs, no martyrs, just from shining our own light. Yeah.
Well, I have to ask you this question before you leave us, because a lot of people wanted to hear the answer to it. They wanted to know if you could talk us through, a typical day in your life. Obviously, not the whole day, but the basics of what you go through, so people can understand how you've become to be this woman who essentially, I mean, holds space for so many other women and has so much wisdom.
Okay, so I mentioned that I'm turning 50. I'm not 50 yet, but at this point, it's so beautiful to wake up and say, okay, who and how I want to be today, rather than how I cultivated my days before. Like before, it's like, okay, I have to wake up and drink my lemon hot water, ginger tea in the morning, so that's good for my belly, my pH. And then I had to go and do an hour of yoga, and then I have to go and write and work, and then I have to call loved ones. And so I had an idea of how every day needed to be perfect. And if I got so much meditation in, so many hours of work, so much time, quality time with my husband, then it was a perfect day. But at this point in my life, you start, and this cannot happen. I mean, there's something that happens when you complete your journey through the 7 chakras, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 49 years. Rudolf Steiner spoke about this a lot.
Yeah.
And when you have lived through every archetypal energy you could live according to the Mayan cosmology, then there's a wisdom that you have been in every energy you'll be in your lifetime. And then my hormones are changing. So, and then you just don't put up with what is not authentic anymore. So I'm grateful to this time in my life when my hormones are speaking, and Chiron, the wounded healer in the heavens, is right back in my sun. And so it's like, okay, now I get to be myself even more. And so nowadays I have a lot of things I love to do. Like for me, it's so important to meditate every day. To tell you the truth, I do half an hour of concentrating and stilling my mind. That helps me a lot to not be impulsive reactive, because I'm so young, fiery. So that's really helpful. I love dancing every day. So I don't have a set schedule anymore, but at some point in my day, I love like dancing at least one good song that speaks to my soul in that moment. I love stretching, doing my yoga still, and I eat healthy. Alberto and I eat lots of greens, minerals are good for me as a woman also. So a lot of kale, chard, and all green leaves. And I am vegetarian, actually. I have been since I'm 19 years old. And the other day, so here's where we go with the authenticity of these moments in my life. The other day, I ate meat for the first time in 30 years.
Wow. Wow.
And it's because I was feeling a little bit weak. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And I ate a little piece of meat. I cooked it a lot. I didn't want to see blood. And I felt good afterwards, actually. I felt more energized. So here we go. We start being really authentic and not dogmatic. So against dogma, not dogma. And I do my smoothies usually in the morning, 6 days a week. I have a smoothie with minerals and protein and things like that. Vitamin B12 because I'm vegetarian, vitamin D3 because it's good for us today for the immune system. But also once a week I eat eggs. I'm a bit allergic to eggs, but I can handle it once a week. So once a week I do a brunch with eggs and then my greens. And we bake our own gluten-free bread at home. I love playing Scrabble with Alberto. So every day we work a lot, but we play every day a game. Absolutely every day we play a game.
Fantastic.
And we don't have a TV. I never owned a TV in my life. So I'm very clueless about TV programs. But we play and walk. So another big thing for me in my life is I landscape our garden. Now
That's quite a big garden for landscape.
Yeah, this year in quarantine, I finally have a lot of time to go out.
Yeah.
So I walk. I'm in nature a lot. I'm out talking to my trees all the time, and then I have full moon ceremonies, equinox ceremonies, solstice ceremonies, because I love it, not because someone tells me I should do it. So that's a little bit.
Wow. Well, thank you for being so
Yeah.
open about your life. It sounds like you're very centered, and every time I speak to you, there's this vibe of not letting life stress you out, but just kind of. I don't know if you've always been like that. I imagine when you were going through your troubling times in California, it would have been more difficult to be in that space.
It's still a flow. It's still the flow. So if we think of the Tao from the Chinese perspective, ancient China is the Tao. Sometimes the skies are gray, sometimes the skies are blue. And if we can just be, I think the most important, if I had to say one more thing, is be truthful to how you feel and what's happening, and don't think how you should be feeling because someone else says so. So really authentic, to don't just be authentic with where you are at and how you feel, and then take what helps you, and shoot for the shoot in a good way for the moon and beyond, to the
Yeah,
stars.
yeah.
Go
Oh.
big, as they say.
Go
Go
big.
big,
Thank
live
you.
life.
I was going to say, what would you like when you look back on your life in 30, 40, 50 years? How would you like to be remembered? Is there one specific thing that you'd like to be remembered for?
Hmm. Sometimes I just want to die quietly and be forgotten. um,
You chose the
and
wrong husband, I think, Marcela, there.
and sometimes, yeah, I guess that's why I'm writing my books finally. So I just finished one, and I started writing the book about the monarchy. I feel there's a lot of potential there for guiding
Wow.
people in these times of crisis. And
Yeah.
then, so they say the best way to finish a book is start another one, and it's great. Actually, it's working out. So I hope to help with that, and then anything beyond, I hope to leave a inspirational legacy to my grandchildren and great
Wow.
grandchildren.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being so authentic, so genuine. Thank you for everything that you bring to this world. Thank you for all the gifts and for your inspiration. It really is an honor to talk to you, and every time I do, I just want to hear more. And so I'm sure the books will make up for that somehow when they come out. But send our love to Alberto, and also keep being yourself, Marcela.
Thank you, Peter, so much, and for your journey and what you are doing for so many others. I'm very grateful to you, and may we all dream a beautiful world for our children's children. Everybody watching.
Yeah,
And
big.
Patty, thank you. Thank you. Talk
Yeah, yeah.
soon.
Thank you so much, and I'll let you have some nice, healthy lunch. Is it the day for eggs today or not?
Yesterday was eggs. Today,
Yesterday was eggs day.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, I hope you beat Alberto at Scrabble tonight. Anyway, thank you, Marcella.
Thank you.